While you're arguing about whether a $5 latte is ruining your finances, the top 10% are doing something completely different with their money. And here's what nobody's telling you. It's not about how much they earn. In fact, 37% of people in the top wealth percentile started in middle-class households. The difference? 7 specific habits that have nothing to do with cutting coupons or skipping avocado toast. What I discovered after analyzing the financial patterns of over 2,000 high net worth individuals will probably make you rethink everything you've been taught about building wealth. And one of these habits? It's something you can start doing tomorrow morning. What's up, everyone? I'm Sean, and around here, we don't worship wealth. We study it. We dissect it. We figure out what actually works and what's just financial theater designed to keep you running on a hamster wheel. Because here's my philosophy. The money game has rules, but nobody's handing you the rulebook. And that's not an accident. Today, we're cracking open the vault on how the top 10% actually handle their money. Not the Instagram version, not the guru fantasy, the real, documented, data-backed truth. And I've got to warn you, some of this is going to contradict everything mainstream personal finance has been shouting at you for decades. Before we dive in, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button, smash the like, and turn on notifications. Why? Because the algorithms don't favor financial truth-telling, and I need your help making sure this reaches the people who actually need to hear it. Plus, we drop new episodes every week that the financial establishment would rather you didn't. All right, let's get into it. The myth we need to destroy first. Let me tell you about Sarah. Sarah is a dental hygienist in Columbus, Ohio. She makes $68,000 a year. That's solidly middle class in 2026. She's read all the books. She follows the budget apps religiously. She brings her lunch to work 4 days a week. She even drives a 7-year-old Honda Civic because that's what the financial experts told her responsible people do. Sarah is doing everything right. And you know what? After 10 years of this, she has $23,000 saved. Not bad, right? Except her rent has gone up 42% in those 10 years, her insurance costs have nearly doubled, and she's starting to realize that at this pace, she'll be 70 before she has anything resembling financial freedom. Sarah is stuck in what I call the efficiency trap. Now let me tell you about Jennifer. Jennifer is also a dental hygienist. Same city, similar income, started at $62,000. But Jennifer is now in the top 10% of wealth for her age group. She's got $417,000 in assets, and she's only 39 years old. What's the difference? It's not that Jennifer is smarter. It's not that she inherited money. She didn't. It's not even that she got lucky, though she'd probably tell you she did, because successful people often attribute their wins to luck and their losses to circumstance. The difference is that Jennifer learned something that Sarah is still missing. The top 10% don't play the efficiency game. They play the expansion game. And that's the first habit we need to talk about. Habit number 1. They think in terms of systems, not budgets. Here's what the financial industrial complex won't tell you. Budgeting is important, but it's kindergarten math. It's necessary, but it's not sufficient. The top 10%? They build systems. Let me break this down with a real example. My neighbor, David, runs a small accounting firm. Makes about $230,000 a year. Puts him in the top 10% of earners. I asked him once about his budget, and you know what he told me? Sean, I haven't looked at my budget in 3 years. My first thought, this guy's either lying or he's bad with money. But then he explained his system. First, 30% of every dollar that hits his business account automatically gets distributed. 10% to taxes, held in a separate account, 15% to investment accounts, 5% to a high-yield savings account he calls his opportunity fund. Second, he has what he calls constraint-based spending. He pays himself a salary from his business, $120,000, not because he can't afford more, but because constraints create creativity. Everything else stays in the business or goes to the automatic distributions. Third, he reviews his system quarterly, not his budget daily. The result? He doesn't agonize over whether he can afford something. The system already made that decision. His money is already working before he has a chance to sabotage himself with it. Compare this to how most people budget. They create these elaborate spreadsheets, track every purchase, feel guilty about the occasional splurge, then abandon the whole thing by February. The top 10% automate virtue. The middle class tries to white-knuckle it. And here's the rebellious truth nobody wants to say out loud. Willpower is a terrible financial strategy. It fails. Every time. Eventually.
Jennifer, the dental hygienist I mentioned, she did something similar. She set up her paycheck so 20% never hit her checking account. It went straight to her investment account. Then she lived on what was left. She made saving the default, not the aspiration. Within 3 years, she stopped thinking about it. The system was running. Action item for you? Stop asking, can I afford this? Start asking, does my system allow for this? Build automation that makes good financial decisions before your brain gets involved. Habit number 2, they invest in asymmetric opportunities. All right, this one's going to sound counterintuitive, but stay with me. The top 10% take more risks, not fewer. But, and this is crucial, they take specific kinds of risks. They look for what's called asymmetric opportunities, situations where the potential upside massively outweighs the downside. Let me tell you about Ramon. Ramon works in IT management, makes about $140,000 a year. In 2022, his company offered employees the chance to invest in a startup the company was partnering with. Most people passed. Seemed risky. The company might fail, you could lose your money. Ramon put in $10,000, about 5% of his liquid savings at the time. Here's what he told me. Sean, I ran the numbers. Worst case, I lose 10 grand. That sucks, but it won't destroy me. Best case, this thing goes somewhere and 10 grand becomes 100 grand or more. That's asymmetric. That startup got acquired in 2024. Ramon's $10,000 became $87,000. Now, I'm not saying go gamble your savings on startups. That's not the point. The point is that Ramon was thinking in terms of risk-reward ratios, while most people just think in terms of risky or safe. The middle class avoids risk. The top 10% analyzes and selects risk. Here's another example. Education. Most people think of education as college or nothing. But I know a woman named Patricia who spent $3,000 in 2023 on a specialized 6-week coding bootcamp for data analytics. She already had a bachelor's degree in marketing, but she saw where her industry was going. That $3,000 investment led to a job change and a $52,000 salary increase. That's asymmetric. Small investment, massive return. Meanwhile, someone else might spend $3,000 on a vacation, which is great for memories, but terrible for asymmetric returns. Or they might not spend it at all, keeping it in a savings account earning 3% interest. Safe, but symmetrically low return. The top 10% are constantly scanning for asymmetric bets. A certification that could double their billing rate, a rental property in an emerging neighborhood, learning a high-demand skill before it becomes obvious, building a side business with low startup costs but high scalability potential. In 2026, with AI reshaping entire industries, the asymmetric opportunities are everywhere. Most people are paralyzed by the change. The top 10% are cataloging opportunities. Here's your action item. Identify 3 asymmetric opportunities in your field or life right now. What could you invest time or moderate money into where the potential upside is 10x the downside risk?
Habit number 3. They view their career as an asset to optimize. This is where I see the biggest behavioral difference. The middle class treats their job as a constant. The top 10% treat their earning power as a variable they can optimize. Let me introduce you to Kevin. Kevin is a project manager at a construction firm in Dallas. In 2021, he was making $74,000, solid middle-class income. He was comfortable. But Kevin did something most people don't do. He treated his career like a portfolio manager treats stocks. Every 6 months, he'd do a career audit. What am I worth on the open market right now? What skills are increasing in value in my industry? What credentials or certifications have the highest ROI? Is my current company paying market rate? In 2022, he discovered project managers with PMP certification and experience in sustainable construction were getting offered 15 to 20% more. He spent 4 months and about $2,000 getting certified in both. By 2025, he leveraged that into a new position, $97,000 plus better benefits. But here's where it gets interesting. Kevin didn't just chase money. He chased what he calls career equity, positioning himself in growing sectors with increasing demand. By 2025, with his experience in sustainable construction, he was getting recruited heavily. He's now at $132,000, and he gets contacted by headhunters monthly. Kevin didn't job hop recklessly. He strategically positioned himself at the intersection of his skills and market demand. Compare that to his colleague, Tom. Same starting point in 2021, same company. Tom believed in loyalty. If I do good work, they'll take care of me, he'd say. Noble sentiment, poor strategy.
Tom is still at that company. He makes $89,000 now. He's gotten raises, cost of living adjustments mostly. He's a good employee, but he confused being good at his job with optimizing his career asset. The difference in their lifetime earnings will be in the millions. Here's the rebellious part. Your employer is not your family. Your employer is a counterparty in an economic transaction. The top 10% understand this. They're professionals, they're ethical, they deliver value, but they're not loyal to a fault. In 2026, the average person in the top 10% has changed employers or significantly restructured their role every 3.2 years. They're not flaky, they're strategic. Your action item? Schedule a career audit for next week. Answer those 4 questions Kevin asks. Be honest. Then make a 6-month plan to increase your market value by at least 15%. The habits that challenge conventional wisdom. Let's shift gears. The first 3 habits are about active optimization, systems, opportunities, career management. The next 4 are about how the top 10% think differently about money itself. Habit number 4. They spend significantly on things that make them more money. This one messes with people's heads. You've been told to be frugal, cut expenses, deny yourself. The top 10%, they spend heavily on specific things. But here's the key. They spend on force multipliers. Let me tell you about Angela. Angela runs a consulting business helping small businesses with HR compliance. When I met her in 2023, she was doing okay, about $90,000 in revenue, working constantly, stressed out. She was penny pinching everything, cheapest software, no help, doing her own bookkeeping at night, very bootstrapped entrepreneur. Then she made a decision that freaked out everyone around her. She spent $28,000 in 1 quarter. $12,000 on a high-end CRM and automation software, $10,000 on a part-time virtual assistant, and $6,000 on a professional website redesign and SEO. Her friends thought she was crazy. You can't afford that. But Angela understood something crucial. She couldn't afford not to. By the end of 2024, her revenue was at $240,000. By mid-2025, she crossed $400,000. The $28,000 she spent bought her time, systematization, and credibility. Those things made her money. The top 10% understand the difference between an expense and an investment. Middle-class thinking, this costs money, therefore I should avoid it. Top 10% thinking, what does this return per dollar spent? Another example. I know a sales manager who spends $600 a month on personal training and meal prep service. Sounds extravagant, right? But here's his calculation. When I'm in shape, I have more energy. More energy means I perform better in high-stakes meetings. Better performance means I close more deals. My commissions are heavily tied to performance. That $600 generates at least $3,000 to $5,000 in additional income monthly. It's the best investment I make. Is he rationalizing an expense, or is he correctly identifying a force multiplier? The data suggests the latter. High earners spend disproportionately more on health and fitness, energy optimization, time-saving services, hour value arbitrage, education and skill development, career equity, tools that automate or enhance their work, leverage. They spend less on status signaling, unless it directly impacts their business, on depreciating assets without utility, and on entertainment that doesn't restore their capacity to earn. Your action item? Identify the biggest constraint in your ability to earn more or work smarter. What would it cost to remove that constraint? Run the ROI calculation. If it's positive, buy it. Habit 5. They have multiple income streams. Here's a stat that should wake you up. The average person in the top 10% has 3.7 income streams. Not jobs, income streams. Let me clarify this because it gets misunderstood. They're not working 4 jobs. They've structured their financial life so money comes from multiple sources. Meet Diane. Diane is a physical therapist. Her primary income is from her clinic work, about $106,000 annually. But Diane also has rental income from a duplex she bought in 2020, generates about $19,000 annually after expenses. A small online course teaching injury prevention for runners, she's a marathon runner herself, generates $12,000 to $15,000 a year, mostly passive now. Dividend income from her investment portfolio, about $7,000 annually. Occasional consulting for sports teams on injury prevention protocols, maybe $8,000 to $12,000 a year. Total, around $150,000 to $160,000. But here's what matters more than the total: resilience. In early 2024, Diane had a medical issue, couldn't work at the clinic for 3 months. If the clinic was her only income, financial disaster. Instead, her other income streams kept flowing. She was fine. The top 10% build redundancy into their income. The middle class optimizes for efficiency, one job, maximum pay. The top 10% optimize for resilience, multiple streams, anti-fragility. Now, I know what you're thinking. Sean, I barely have time for one job. How am I supposed to create multiple income streams? Fair question, but you're thinking about it wrong. Jennifer, our dental hygienist from earlier, here's how she built additional streams without burning out. Stream 1, her day job, dental hygiene. She's excellent at it and it pays the bills. Stream 2, she bought a rental property in 2019. Took time to set up, but now it's managed by a property management company, mostly passive, generates income. Stream 3, in 2023, she started investing in dividend-focused indexed funds. Every quarter, money shows up. She doesn't do anything. Stream 4, she has a side gig doing medical billing consulting for other dental offices. 4 hours a week. She does it Saturday mornings. Brings in about $1,200 a month. None of these individually are making her rich. Together, they've created financial momentum and security. The pattern. One stream requires active work, day job. One or two require upfront work, then become mostly passive, rental, investments. One is semi-active, but in a domain where she has expertise, so it's not soul-crushing, consulting. Your action item? You don't need to build 4 income streams by next month, but you should start one this year. Pick the path that fits. If you have time but not money, start a skilled side gig. If you have money but not time, invest in dividend stocks or a passive business. If you have neither, start building a skill that could become a side income in 12 to 18 months. Habit number 6. They protect their wealth as aggressively as they build it. This might be the most overlooked habit. The top 10% are paranoid about downside protection. Let me tell you about a guy named Richard. Rich built a successful regional chain of auto repair shops. By 2022, he was worth about $4 million, solidly in the top percentiles. Then in 2023, one of his shops had a catastrophic accident. Employee error. A customer's car caught fire and spread to 2 other vehicles. Lawsuit. Potential 7-figure liability. Richard barely flinched. Why? Because years earlier, he'd structured everything to protect against exactly this kind of scenario. Proper insurance, including umbrella policies. His businesses were LLCs, separating personal assets from business liability. His personal wealth was diversified across entities and accounts that couldn't be easily touched in litigation. He had a relationship with both a lawyer and an accountant who specialized in asset protection. The lawsuit settled. Insurance covered most of it. Richard's personal wealth wasn't even in play. Meanwhile, most middle-class people are one lawsuit, one medical emergency, or one bad investment away from financial catastrophe. The top 10% obsess over insurance, not just the minimum, actual coverage. Disability insurance, umbrella policies, proper business insurance. They see insurance as asymmetric protection. Small cost, massive potential save. Legal structures. LLCs for side businesses, trusts for estate planning. They pay lawyers to build moats around their wealth. Diversification. They don't put everything in one stock, one property, one business. Spreading risk is fundamental. Estate planning. They have wills, healthcare directives, power of attorney documents. Not because they're old, because they're responsible. Here's the rebellious truth. The system is designed to separate you from your wealth. The top 10% build defenses. I know a woman who's a freelance graphic designer, makes about $95,000 a year. Not ultra wealthy, but doing well. She got sued by a client in 2025 over a contract dispute. Frivolous lawsuit, eventually dismissed. But you know what saved her? She had formed an LLC years earlier for her freelance work. Cost her a few $100 and an hour of paperwork. That LLC meant the client was suing the business entity, not her personally. Her house, her savings, her car, protected. Cost to set up the LLC? About $400 in minimal annual maintenance. Value when she needed it? Immeasurable. Your action item? Audit your downside protection this month. Do you have adequate insurance for your actual risk profile? If you have side income or a business, is it properly structured? Do you have basic estate planning documents? Is your wealth diversified or dangerously concentrated? Boring? Yes. Necessary? Absolutely. Habit number 7. They invest in relationships that have economic value. Last habit. And this is the one that makes people uncomfortable because it sounds transactional. But let's be adults about this. The top 10% build strategic relationships. Not fake relationships, not using people, but they're intentional about their network in a way most people aren't. Let me tell you about Carol. Carol is a real estate agent in Phoenix, good at her job, but in a crowded market. In 2021, she was making about $68,000, struggling. Then she did something deliberate. She joined 3 organizations: a local real estate investment club, a chamber of commerce committee focused on urban development, and a nonprofit board focused on affordable housing. These weren't random. She chose them strategically, places where decision makers in her industry would be, places where she could provide value and build genuine relationships. Within a year, her income jumped to $112,000. By 2024, she was at $197,000. What happened? The relationships she built led to referrals from investors she met at the club, inside knowledge about development projects before they went public, partnerships with developers she met through the nonprofit, a reputation as someone who knew the market deeply. Carol didn't use anyone. She showed up, provided value, built genuine relationships, but she was strategic about where and how. Compare this to someone who works hard, goes home, watches Netflix, and wonders why opportunities don't find them. The top 10% understand your network is a multiplier on your effort. A study from 2025 found that high earners spend, on average, 7 hours per month on what they call strategic relationship building: events, coffee meetings, industry gatherings, volunteer work in their professional domain. They're not schmoozing. They're building a web of relationships that create opportunities, information flow, and mutual support. Another example, I know an IT contractor who makes about $170,000 a year. Every quarter, he takes 3 people to lunch, people in his industry who he wants to learn from or stay connected with. He budgets for it, about $300 a month. Seems like a lot for lunches, right? Except in the last 3 years, 2 of his biggest contracts came from relationships nurtured at those lunches. We're talking $200,000 in revenue from a $900 annual lunch budget. Here's the rebellious truth. You can work yourself to exhaustion in isolation, or you can work smart and build relationships that accelerate your results. The top 10% choose the latter. Your action item? Identify 5 people in the next 30 days who could be valuable relationships, people you could learn from, collaborate with, or who could open doors. Reach out. Offer value first. Build genuine connections.